Welcome, truly welcome to this space where the mind opens. The spirit exhales and questions become doors. Here in this corner of calm and consciousness, we explore life from a different angle, wider, deeper, more human. Today we're diving into something every one of us has felt, rejection. A word that cuts like a blade when we hear it, an echo that lingers in the chest far longer than we'd like. But today I want you to see it differently, from a place Alan Watts understood well, the space between who we think we are and who we really are, between what we wish would happen and what life mysteriously delivers instead. And before we begin this journey, let me ask you a question, one Watts himself might have asked, with that playful, knowing smile that blended humor with clarity. What if rejection isn't a loss, but an invitation from life to stop swimming against the current and finally discover who you are without anyone else's expectations? Think about that. What if the no that hurt you the most was the exact movement you needed to wake up? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, not only will you have an answer, you'll see your own story under a completely different light. This isn't a video to entertain, this is a video to transform, to expand your consciousness, to bring meaning to experiences you thought had none. Let's begin. 1. When everything seems to end, life is just beginning. There are phrases that act like keys, sentences that unlock new rooms in the mind. One of them is this: when you feel everything has ended, that's when it actually begins. We rarely think this way. When something ends, a relationship, an opportunity, a friendship, a dream, we tend to focus on the empty space, not the possibility. We stare at the gap, not the horizon. But life has its own language, a language we don't always understand right away. Sometimes the universe speaks through loss, sometimes it redirects us through pain, and sometimes it wakes us up through rejection. A story that could be yours. Maria, like you, like me, had been carrying feelings for Juan for months. She created the perfect scene in her mind: a warm afternoon, two honest gazes, a confession that would open a new chapter, and that chapter did come, just not the one she had imagined. "I don't feel the same," he said. Words like these weigh heavy, not because they are cruel, but because they collapse the world we built around them. The body reacts as if facing a real threat. The heart races, muscles tighten, thoughts blur, the stomach twists. Why? Because somewhere deep in our biology, an ancient alarm still echoes. Being rejected once meant danger. Belonging was survival, exclusion meant risk. That hasn't been true for thousands of years, but the brain doesn't distinguish between a tiger and "I just don't feel the same." And this is where our suffering begins. 2. What hurts isn't the rejection, but the meaning you give it. Alan Watts often said something brilliant: we suffer because we try to make permanent what is meant to change. And that includes people's acceptance. We want someone to love us, choose us, validate us. We want life to follow the script we wrote in our minds. We want the world to bend around our expectations. But life doesn't work like that. Life doesn't negotiate. It doesn't alter its current just because we want to swim in a particular direction. Life flows, and we suffer when we cling. Rejection as a mirror, not a verdict. What hurts isn't the word no. What hurts is the story we attach to it. I'm not enough. I stem unworthy. I'll never find something better. Something must be wrong with me. But none of these sentences come with the no. They're interpretations, stories built by a mind terrified of losing its identity. Watts would say, if the self is an illusion, rejection loses its power because there is no solid self to defend. Deep, isn't it? It's not about denying the pain, it's about understanding it. 3. Rejection as a natural movement of the universe. One of Alan Watts' most beautiful ideas was that life is a dance where stepping forward, stepping back, opening, closing, gaining and losing are all essential movements. Expecting continuous acceptance is like expecting music to contain only high notes. Impossible, it would kill the rhythm. No's are part of the melody. They're pauses, silences that shape the song. Imagine a piece of music with no silence. It would be noise. Imagine a life where everything was affirmation, no rejection, no redirection. It would be illusion, and probably a prison. Rejection appears when a path is no longer ours, when a connection no longer fits, when a door must close so another one we don't yet see can open. Watts put it beautifully: when you stop trying to control life, you discover it was never against you. 4. Rejection as protection here is an idea we rarely consider, an idea that transforms everything. Sometimes what rejects you is actually protecting you. That relationship that didn't work may have dimmed your light. That job you didn't get may have drained your soul. That project that didn't happen may have closed doors that weren't yours. That person who didn't choose you might have slowed your growth. Life sees things we can't see. It understands movements we can't grasp yet. It works with an intelligence that doesn't need our approval. Watts summed it up like this: sudden, the universe doesn't make mistakes. It's only that we don't understand the pattern. Asterisk. And when you look at rejection with that lens, something in you relaxes. The wound doesn't disappear, but it gains meaning. 5. Rejection as a wake-up call. Imagine, just for a moment, that rejection is a kind of alarm clock, that annoying ringing that breaks your sleep, shakes your comfort, forces your eyes open. What if rejection is exactly that? A call to awareness, a push toward a path you've been avoiding, a version of yourself you've been neglecting. Watts said, "Sischit, life is a process of transformation. Every loss is a reminder that nothing is meant to stay the same." Asterisk. When someone rejects you, something shifts inside. It hurts, yes, but that pain also pushes. It forces you to ask, who am I without that person? What am I worth without that validation? What do I actually want? What part of me needs to grow? Rejection, properly understood, is a powerful catalyst for self-discovery. 6. The first bridge between Watts and real life. Sometimes people listen to Alan Watts and think, it's deep, poetic, but how do I use this in real life? Start here. See rejection not as a break in the flow, but as the flow redirecting itself. Every no you receive is a course correction, an adjustment, a movement of the river. Think of this: when a river encounters a rock, it doesn't argue, push, or demand that the rock move. It simply flows around it. It doesn't resist. It doesn't need to win. It continues its course. What would your life feel like if you did the same? What if you understood that what rejects you simply isn't part of your current? This is where real freedom begins. 1. The self that feels rejected. Alan Watts had a rare gift. He could take ideas normally reserved for monks, philosophers, and mystics and make them understandable to anyone living an ordinary life. One of those ideas was the illusion of the self. According to Watts, we do not suffer from what happens. We suffer from the rigid identity we use to interpret what happens. He explained it almost humorously: the self you're so proud of is mostly an idea. This becomes crucial when we talk about rejection. Why does a no hurt so much? Because we believe that this self, this fragile identity built from expectations, fears, desires, and stories, is being judged, denied, invalidated. It's not the situation. It's not the person, it's the ego. Or rather, the idea of the ego. When someone tells us no, the ego shrinks as if a light were turned off. But that light was never really ours. It was a projection, not an essence. Watts would say, Sitchin, for rejection to truly hurt you, you first have to believe there is a solid you that has been attacked. But that you is just a mask. Asterisk. Powerful, isn't it? This isn't about minimizing emotional pain. It's about understanding which part of you suffers and whether that part is even real. 2. Rejection as the deconstruction of the self. Rejection is one of the few experiences that forces us to look inward without any filter. When someone says no, several images shatter at once: the image we had of ourselves, the image we had of the other, the image we had of the future. That internal trembling is uncomfortable. Yes, but it's also a rare opportunity to ask, who am I when I'm not being accepted? What part of me depends on recognition? What value do I think disappears when someone rejects me? What desire, what fantasy, what identity is falling apart? Watts taught that identity is like a cloud, shifting, moving, dissolving. When rejection strikes, it is not your essence that breaks, it is only the cloud, and far from destroying you, it frees you. 3. Rejection and the illusion of control. Another central idea in Watts' teachings is this: we live inside a dangerous illusion, the illusion that we control life. We think we control what others feel, how events unfold, who stays, who goes, but life, he insisted, does not follow personal orders. It follows harmony, it follows flow. Rejection appears when the ego is trying to hold a river in its hands. Picture this: trying to force a relationship, an opportunity, or someone's approval is like trying to hold water by tightening your fists. The harder you squeeze, the faster it disappears. When life tells you no, it is inviting you to unclench, to stop gripping, to stop forcing outcomes, to stop interpreting everything as a personal failure. Watts said it with elegant humor: life cannot be mastered, it can only be danced. And rejection is one of those unexpected dance steps. 4. A Watts-like story. The door that would not open. Imagine a young man named Daniel. He believed his entire life would make sense only if he got a specific job at a specific company. He obsessed over it, made it his destiny. His identity, he applied, interviewed, waited, rejection. Daniel felt crushed. He thought life had robbed him of his one chance. He felt directionless. What he did not know and could not know was that 8 months later, that same company would shut down an entire division, including the one he wanted. What he interpreted as injustice, loss, failure, was actually protection. Meanwhile, fueled by frustration, Daniel began exploring other possibilities, paths he had ignored. Along those discarded paths, he met someone who changed his life, discovered a passion he didn't know he had, joined a company where he would thrive and rise quickly, all because he was rejected. Watts would have smiled and said, "Sigid, life doesn't take your destiny away, it prevents you from walking where you don't belong." Asterisk. 5. Life as a wave. The deepest lesson. Watts loved the metaphor of the ocean. He'd say every person is like a wave, rising, swelling, breaking, dissolving, reforming, not something separate, not something isolated, but a temporary movement within something vast and endless. And what does this have to do with rejection? Everything. A wave doesn't suffer when it breaks, because it knows it is still the ocean. Rejection doesn't destroy your essence. It only reshapes your temporary form. A wave doesn't decide its shape or direction. We cannot dictate how others feel or where life leads. A wave doesn't compare itself to other waves. It simply rises and falls, Watts said. "Tis life is like the ocean. The more you try to control it, the more it overwhelms you. But once you surrender to its rhythm, you realize you were never separate from it." Asterisk. Rejection is just a shift in shape, not a tragedy. 6. Why rejection wakes us up: because it strikes the exact place the ego clings to. Rejection is a reminder that we cannot control other people. We cannot control outcomes. Our value doesn't depend on external approval. The self we protect is only a mental construction. Rejection wakes you up from the dream of control. It reminds you that you are bigger than that story, bigger than that expectation, bigger than that version of yourself. Watts expressed it simply: "Sig, when you finally understand you control nothing, you are free from the anxiety of trying." Asterisk. 7. The paradox of rejection. Watts believed life is full of paradoxes that, once understood, open inner doors. You're rejected, and you find yourself, you lose, and something better emerges. You hurt, and clarity appears. A door closes, and you are pushed forward. Someone leaves, and you awaken. He often said life hides treasures in the places we least expect. Rejection is one of them, because what happens after rejection? You change, you question, you grow, you evolve. Rejection isn't an ending, it's a calling. 3 human stories that reveal the gift of rejection. Watts loved stories. Simple ones, human ones, full of meaning, because the mind forgets theories, but it remembers stories. Here are 3, based entirely on the ones you gave me, retold in Watts' rhythm. Story 1, the dream that didn't end as expected. Claudia dreamed of joining a prestigious ballet academy. Her entire life revolved around that dream. She auditioned, she waited, she was rejected. Her world collapsed. She stopped dancing for months. She felt she had lost her purpose. But one day, almost accidentally, She joined a friend in a contemporary dance class. Inside that room, something in her awakened. She realized it wasn't ballet she loved. It was movement, freedom, expression. Years later, Claudia became a renowned contemporary choreographer. When asked about the turning point of her life, she said, "Sejid, being rejected, that no returned me to myself." Asterisk. Watts would have nodded. What you call a failed destiny may simply be life preventing you from entering where you do not belong. Story 2. The love that didn't happen because it wasn't meant to. Martin had been in love with Laura for years. He finally confessed. She didn't feel the same. He was heartbroken, certain he had lost the love of his life. Years later, they met again by chance. Laura was going through turmoil, chaos, instability. Martin realized something. Had they been together, he would have been dragged into storms that weren't his. What he thought was a tragedy, Watts said, sometimes life keeps you from what you want because it would crush you before you discover who you are. Asterisk. Martin didn't lose love. He was being prepared for the right one. Story 3. The job that evaporated like smoke. Javier dreamt of working at a particular company. The perfect salary, the perfect prestige, the perfect plan. They rejected him. Weeks later, a small startup invited him to join. Messy, risky, unpredictable. He accepted reluctantly. That startup later became a global success. Javier became a key leader. Meanwhile, the company that rejected him turned out to be toxic, unstable, draining. Watts would say, "You didn't lose what you thought you wanted. It was the illusion that disappeared." Asterisk. What every story reveals, look closely. All were rejected. All thought it was a disaster. None understood it in the moment. All later saw the rejection as a gift. A painful gift, but a gift nonetheless. Watts constantly said, life communicates through redirection. Sitchin. This is not your way. Let go. Move on. Asterisk. Rejection isn't designed to destroy you. It's designed to move you. The ego after rejection. When we are rejected, the ego contracts, wounded, exposed. It repeats painful stories. I'm not enough. I tum unlovable. I shall never get this again. The sep's my fault. Everything is lost. But these are constructions, automatic reactions from a frightened mind. Watts put it clearly. The ego is a ghost you fear because you believe it's you. Rejection does not wound your essence. It wounds your image. And when that image collapses, something extraordinary appears. Your truth, your authenticity, your consciousness, your clarity, your purpose. Rejection reveals what comfort never could. Your real self. Rejection as a teacher. Look back at your life. Think of the times life told you no. Now notice how many of those no's were later protective, necessary, helpful. Every rejection teaches something: resilience, letting go, self-awareness, not clinging, flowing with life, trusting timing, aligning with purpose, evolving into your real path. Watts said, life teaches you exactly what you're ready to learn. Rejection is one of its greatest teachers, bringing Watts into daily life. Some think Watts is too poetic for real life, but they misunderstand him. Watts wasn't teaching escape. He was teaching clarity. He wasn't teaching detachment to stop feeling, but to stop clinging. He wasn't teaching surrender as weakness, but as wisdom. He taught us to see the world without illusion. And when we apply his vision to rejection, something profound shifts. Rejection stops being a wound and becomes an awakening. The tools: one, conscious detachment, not indifference, not coldness, but the ability to let experience come and let it go. Nothing is meant to stay forever. When rejected, feel your pain, observe the ego, breathe, and let the moment pass through you. Thank you, you can say. Your time in my life is complete. 2. The river of life. Watts compared life to a river. Pain comes from swimming against it. Ask yourself, what was I trying to control? What wasn't flowing? What was I forcing? Tension means resistance, Watts said. Relief means surrender. 3. Observation. Without identification, you are the sky, not the passing thoughts, not I am not enough. But I'm having the thought that I'm not enough. That difference is freedom. 4. Transforming emotional energy. All emotion is energy. Creation is its transformation. Write, move, build, change something. Life breaks you open to see what you create with the pieces. 5. Silence, not emptiness. Awareness, revelation grows in silence. Sit, breathe, observe. What hurts becomes wisdom. Acceptance versus resignation. Resignation says, there's nothing I can do. Acceptance says, this is what happened. What door opens now? Watts wasn't passive. He was awake. The question that transforms rejection. Ask yourself, if this hadn't happened, what possibility would never have appeared? That question breaks the ego's narrative and reveals life's intelligence. Why rejection transforms more than success. Success rarely makes you reflect. Rejection does. It wakes you up. It shows you what's real. It returns you to yourself. Watts said, awakening happens when life shakes you hard enough to stop dreaming. Rejection is that shake, the final benefit. Expansion, we outgrow old identities, old dreams, old relationships. Rejection pushes you forward when you refuse to move. Life removes what you've outgrown, Watts said. Even when you resist. Rejection isn't destruction, it's evolution. The famous story of the monk and the horse. Watts often told this story because it reveals everything. Good luck? Bad luck? No one knows. Rejection fits the same pattern. Today's pain becomes tomorrow's protection. Today's loss becomes tomorrow's clarity. We never see the whole picture. Only life does. The ultimate teaching, life doesn't take. It redirects. We think rejection takes something away, but life is simply removing what isn't aligned to make room for what is. Rejection clears false paths. It breaks illusions. It closes doors that would shrink your soul. Watts said, what looks like the end is often the beginning. Not poetry. Truth. Rejection as a blessing in disguise. Let's summarize what rejection actually does. It wakes you up, it redirects you, it frees your identity, it expands your consciousness, it makes you stronger, it shows your real path, it reveals your value, it teaches you to let go, it aligns you with your purpose, it protects you, it evolves you. Is that not a blessing? A painful blessing, but a blessing all the same. Your new relationship with rejection from now on. When rejection comes into your life, remember, life never works against you. It moves you where you need to go. Every no hides a deeper yes. Your worth is intact. Rejection is not a verdict. It's a transition. You are larger than anything that leaves, larger than any closed door. Watts would say, Christian, trust. Life knows what it's doing. Asterisk. Conclusion. If you've made it this far, thank you. Thank you for your time, your presence, your openness. If this journey brought you clarity, awakening, healing, or purpose, I invite you to subscribe, leave a comment sharing what resonated most. Share this video with someone who needs this today. Take care, keep flowing. And remember, asterisk. The no's of life are guides too, and sometimes they are the most sacred doors. Asterisk.